Hey, what's up, and welcome to another episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. I'm Josh.
I'm Sam, and I got satisfaction.
I can't get no. Brum, brum, brum. Hey, we just finished recording with the one and only Barnabas Piper. And
he was great.
If you hadn't, and if you didn't listen to that episode, you need to go back and listen to last week's episode. Great episode on deacons. And deacons in different formats and stuff like that. So I want to give a plug there and thank Barnabas for being on the show last week. And, it's a good thing. What are we going to talk about today, though?
Well, Barna released this new study that showed job satisfaction among pastors is way down.
Ew.
And this is stats and facts to support the things that you already feel, right?
Okay.
So, let's talk about it. But before we do, let's talk about church teams.
Yes.
I love the team at Church Teams. They do such a good job. And they're making a special offer for you, listeners. Give you a couple months free to all that they do. And you can find that at est.church. So go check them out. One of the things that they do really well is two-way texting with Text to Church. Gives you the ability to get your message heard and to hear back from your people. 90% of text messages are read within 3 minutes, and you're going to have a much higher communication rate with your people if you are using the Church Teams two-way texting system. That's a mouthful. But you can learn all about that at est.church. Like I said, they're doing an offer just for our listeners. You fill out a form there at est.church, and they'll get back with you and, give you 2 months free just to try things out. Can't beat that. I love their church management software system. They don't do just texting. They do a lot of other stuff. So go to est.church to go see what they have. Thank you, Church Teams, for sponsoring the show.
Absolutely. And speaking of satisfaction, I was just kind of Googling while you were sharing there with Church Teams, and I found that Church Teams, according to this website, Software and Advice, has a 4.5 out of 5 stars. That's great satisfaction. 4.56, and that's a lot of reviews. And so this is a service that is satisfactory. People love it, and we love it.
The Googles approve it.
The Googles do. So talking about satisfaction, Sam and I just kind of brainstormed with some obvious things we want to talk through, and hopefully this is encouraging to you, those of you who are finding yourself at a bit of a lull in the satisfaction department when it comes to your job. I would just say, Sam, before we get into the nuts and bolts of our particular calling and vocation, it's probably pretty widespread that a lot of people in leadership roles are not satisfied with the job anymore.
I think you're right. I don't have data in front of me. What we have is the data for pastors, but I imagine that this would be the case of many different professions. So you are not alone, pastors. I would think that lots of leadership roles have lower job satisfaction due to the last, not just the pandemic years, but the last several years.
Yeah, pastoral leadership is unique in many ways, but you ought not feel alone. And so some of the resources and the equipping mechanisms that are out there with counseling and therapy and get plenty of exercise and great sleep and all that kind of stuff do apply to you just as much as they apply to any CEO. So let's talk. We got a list here of a couple things that just kind of leap off the page to us. What's the first one, Sam?
Yeah, well, I just think that the percentage itself, if you look at the data from Barna, again, good stuff from Barna here. In 2015, 72% of pastors were very satisfied, but today it's 52% that are very satisfied. Now, you can look at this optimistically. Glass is half full. Half of pastors are very satisfied with what they do, but what that means is that the other half are not. And the drop in rate there, the satisfaction rate, is really stark. So you're talking in 8 years, a 20 percentage point drop in job satisfaction. And I'm assuming a lot of that's just in the last couple to 3 years. The trend is not good. Let me put it that way. Even if you look at it optimistically, hey, over half are very satisfied. Hey, that is good. The trend is really a bad trend, and it's something that I think needs to be addressed.
Yeah. well, I have the study in front of me, Sam. I read the numbers to Sam, so he doesn't have this. But the words I'm looking at here is 38% are very satisfied, and you know this with like these kind of surveys, like some would be, and so like 52 are satisfied, but 38% of that is very satisfied. So,
So it's even lower.
it's even lower, yeah. So, I mean, it's something worth noting, and I don't know. I don't know personally. I don't know, friends. Do you think that's an encouraging thing to find out? Okay, I'm not alone in this. Or are you like, burn the whole thing down? How do you hear stuff like that, Sam?
Yeah. Is it encouraging? Not really. I mean,
No.
I guess it's good to know that you're not alone, but I don't want to wallow in my misery. I don't want to wallow in other people's misery either.
No.
So it's, I think it's an all around more of a bad thing than a good thing.
Yeah.
But if you are listening to this and you do find some encouragement to say, okay, I'm not crazy. Like I'm not out of my mind. Then sure. You can grab hold of that, but it's an old saying, but it's okay not to be okay. You just can't stay there, sort of thing. Like, you should not find comfort in the fact that other people are miserable. Like we got to move beyond this.
Yeah, and what I would add one thing is you could share this kind of data with those who maybe your deacons, as we talked about in the last episode, the elder board, the personnel team, maybe just the church congregation, that there are, 1 out of 2 pastors is very unsatisfied with their job. And a lot of that is not just like, I think I would like something better. It's a discouragement. It's an attack. It's a depression a lot of times, those sort of things. And so if you're at a church and you have 2 pastors, there's a good chance one of them is not feeling really great about this at all. So if you are not a pastor and you're a layperson at your church, man, it might be a good time for you to encourage your pastor and talk to them nuts and bolts. Talk to them about their heart. Talk to them about what they're feeling and be an open kind of sounding board for them in that regard. So, all right. So what's some of our ideas on what's going on behind this?
Yeah. I mean, you shared this study with me and you and I immediately started thinking about why. So,
right.
The study doesn't get into this as, into much detail here. Barna is simply reporting the facts. So Josh and I are now going to speculate on the facts.
That's what we do.
It is a radio show here at EST. So that is what we do. But I think that we can get close to this. So
sure.
One, church growth is just harder now. The numerical growth is the number one metric of success in churches. Whether you think that's good, bad, or ugly, whether you think that it should be or shouldn't be, okay, that's a whole nother debate, but it is. I actually wrote part of my dissertation on this. Attendance growth, worship attendance growth is the number one metric of success. That's what people track. That's what people talk about. That's what magazines, do their top 100 on. And right. It is what it is. And it's harder. It is harder to grow a church today, particularly if you're in a smaller established church. Cultural Christianity is dead. There's the megachurch phenomenon that we've had the last several decades. It's just harder to take a church from 30 to 300. It's harder to take a church from 300 to, 1,000. It's just more difficult today. People are attending less frequently. Cultural Christianity is not there. People don't look at church as, a regular rhythm in their life. And that brings down your worship attendance. You add COVID into the mix, and you can, most churches are smaller now than they were 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That's discouraging.
Yeah. And I can totally relate to that. And even if you have come to the mental conclusion and even the convictional stance that numbers are not the main thing, it's very hard for you to deprogram yourself in this. And so much of the literature, so much of the things, like you said, like magazines celebrating the top 100, they don't celebrate the top 100 faithful pastors, and I'm not downing on Outreach or Lifeway for producing those magazines, because how would you even quantify that, right? So that's not my point.
And if they did try to quantify it, they get a lot of criticism for quantifying it.
Yeah, it'd be very hard. So that's not a down on that. And I do think on the other side of it, I think both of us agree that growth is a helpful determiner. It helps us kind of see some things. So, but man, if you're somebody that has for so long believed that, even subconsciously, and then it's not happening, it can be discouraging. And so we just want to call it what it is. I think how would you remedy that, Sam? How would you push back on that in your own heart and in your own friend circle?
Yeah, okay, let's talk personal, because I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to solve the problem culturally.
No, just you.
Just me personally. I really focus on. Well, so this may not apply to anybody, but you asked the question about me personally.
Yeah.
I focus on my family. I focus on my kids and my wife. And, West Bradenton is a mid-sized church. When we regathered after COVID, we were less than half. We were 300 on a Sunday morning. Now we're, right around 600. So we're a very large church for our area. There's just one mega church in our region.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're over 500, you're in, you can count on one hand those churches in our area. So we are a larger church for our area, and we are growing very slowly, more slowly than I would like. So I am seeing fruit there. But yeah, I compare myself to that church of 3,000 in Dallas or,
Mm-hmm.
Nashville or wherever. And it's like, they got the brand new facility, and, I'm working on air conditioning proposals here that's going to cost us an arm and a leg. And yeah, it could be easy to get a little jealous of other churches. But how do I prevent myself from just saying, man, why aren't we growing here fast? Or I'm just going to go to a bigger church. How do I prevent that in my own soul? Well, my family's doing really well here. My kids are thriving. My wife is extraordinarily happy. Our church is in a healthy place. Our
Mm-hmm.
people are, doing great. The average age of our church has dropped 25 years. We're way more multi-ethnic than we were before. We now have 3 languages spoken in worship services on our campuses. So I just look at things from that perspective, and it really helps me, especially my own family, who are doing really, really well here. Why on earth would I jump just to a bigger church just to go, right? That's kind of the thing we're talking about. More money, more people. Why would I do that? I mean, things are good here.
Yeah.
So that's how I handle it personally. Now, that may not apply to anybody. I mean, people listen to this may be like, well, my church ain't growing and my family's miserable.
Right.
Okay, that everything I just said doesn't apply, but you ask for me personally. That's how I do it. Things are good for my family.
Man, I think the power of reframing is massive. And so I think that that's a great thing to do. I would also say, as somebody who, our church did double and we planted a campus and it now runs 300, and it seems like we just can't stop growing, right? And we've been on that list of the fastest growing churches twice. I'm fairly certain we're going to do it again this next year. That I'll just say this, and I don't know if it helps. It just might sound trite to you. I am 100% telling you, hand in the air, it is not satisfying. That does not satisfy whatever it is that's hurting in your heart. I promise you. You can make that list all day long, and it just doesn't matter. So don't worry about it so much. All right, next.
Yeah, I'll just say this. No one remembers the list anyway. Tell me the top 10 fastest growing churches the last 5 years. You might be able to name some randomly, but people read that list and then they forget it. So,
I mean, I read it. We were on it, and I don't remember any of them. So it just because it's not satisfying.
It's and it's very forgettable. I mean, actually, I'm glad the research is out there. So I just want to go on the record of saying I think it's a good thing to measure this stuff.
Yeah,
because it helps us, track the pulse of things. So I'm actually in favor of doing these measurements. I think it's helpful research, but it's very forgettable research in terms of individual churches. And you're one of those.
Right.
It's very forgettable. And you're right. I've never been on the list, but I would imagine it's not very satisfying. You attain it, and then you got to go to that deacons meeting the next night, and they're giving you a hard time. So
you still got to do what you got to do.
Still got to do what you got to do. So I think that's one reason why satisfaction is down. It's just harder to grow a church, and there's really no
It is.
satisfaction in that anyway. And there's
Yeah.
been this real focus on it since the church growth movement, particularly the latter part of the church growth movement. And I think there's been an unhealthy amount of attention given to it.
You're right.
And now that it's hard to grow a church, everyone's feeling the lull of that.
Mhm.
But the second point, I think, actually has more to do with it than, hey, my church isn't growing. Because I think a lot of people can kind of get through, my church isn't growing, or it's not growing as fast as I would like. But this one hurts, the second one. People are hypercritical today. This is generally just everything. And they're hypercritical and they're hyperconnected. And I think those two things they go hand in hand. People can be hypercritical because of things like social media, texting. I mean, you can say something in the pulpit now, and it's around the entire community via text the second it comes out your mouth, if not social media. So people are hypercritical while being hyperconnected. And because of the hyperconnectivity, there's a lot of comparisons to other pastors, other preachers. They've got these, used to be you'd have cassette tapes and TV ministries, but it's very limited and access was very limited. But now people can go to the best preachers and pastors in the nation, watch their stuff. Yeah. And then of course they're going to compare those people to you. And that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you would just maybe get an anonymous letter. But now you get so much social media, jargon, and some of it's a little less, it's hard to kind of articulate. A lot of social media criticism comes in passive aggressive ways. It's the way somebody posts something. It's the way a staff member makes a post, and it's passive aggressive towards your leadership, or a member who's disgruntled will start visiting other churches and start celebrating this particular aspect of this church. And you know what it is, and you can see it. And then there's all these likes on it, and you're like, that's directed toward us. That's directed toward me. And so that hyper connectivity or criticism, I mean, I heard somebody say the other day, the news used to report the news. Now all it is just opining, just this is my opinion on everything. And people have they begin to think that like wisdom is how critical you can be, how fast you can be critical of some position or some job or something you've never even done. And so there's just this air we breathe is criticism. So it's hard.
Yeah. The passive aggressive social media posts are always, you know what I've had to do? I've just had to find humor in them and just assume that person is just not in a good place and that they just need help. It's just like, because if you even if they mean it personally and they mean it personally, you just can't take it personally.
You can't do anything about it.
Yeah. You really can't do anything about it, particularly if they've gone to another church and they're championing that thing at the other church that that it's very clear what
that
they're
y'all
doing.
Killed or whatever.
Yes. You just got to move on. It's hard. And you just got to assume that person that's doing that, they're just spiritually they're obviously not in a very good place and that they need help. And so you kind of you turn your anger into compassion, which is not the easiest thing to do. But that's what you just have to do there.
But hey, listen, we understand it's discouraging. We understand that could create some stuff and it hurts, but you're not alone. I would also say just fill your social media, follow people that are really positive, encouraging, mute those who are not, or block, and just, make that a source of encouragement instead of letting so many people into your heart and your life. All right.
Third one here. Mm-hmm. The job description of a pastor has greatly expanded.
It's insane. I saw somebody posted a job description the other day, and these are official. This isn't just like one or two members are like, I'd like you to be this way. They want this person that does not exist. None of us can be that. And what we don't often realize is like the very slow, take their time, sit next to you while you're hurting, be real compassionate and long-suffering, that sort of person is often not the same person who is very skilled at standing up and casting a vision and rallying the troops. Those are two different kinds of personalities. But we want all of those personalities in one individual, and then they need to, we often joke, me and our other pastor here, we often joke about how people's greatest fear is public speaking. On the list, it's almost always public speaking. It's higher than jumping out of an airplane and swimming with sharks. It's public speaking. We have to write a presentation and then publicly speak it every single week. And it has to be brand new. You better not copy anybody else. It has to be brand new and funny and connected for 7-year-olds and 70-year-olds. It's an impossible task. And that's just one thing we do, And so these job descriptions have gotten out of control.
They really have. You need to be an expert in business. You need to be an expert in the academy. You need to have a PhD. You need to have 40 years of you need to have 40 years of experience and be less than 40 years old.
Right.
It's just wild what the expectations are of pastors. Yeah. And I could expand this out to say that we're not, you could say football coaches, you could say hospital administrators, you could say teachers. We're not alone here. But I will say this about football coaches, when you get fired, you tend to get a pretty big payout. I don't get that. I've been fired once as a pastor, and I didn't get a big payout.
I think there are some similarities. The unique thing is the way that our social circles, our religious circles, and our family and our jobs are all tied into one thing. And so a coach can go out there and do something stupid. I'm a Texas fan. Our basketball coach allegedly attacked his girlfriend, and he got fired, but he could still live in his house. He actually still has the same girlfriend. And then shortly, he just got another job. That's not the way that our lives work. We can do one bad, and I mean, if you attack a woman, you ought to be fired and jailed. But we can lose our cool on the highway and lose our job, our house, our kids move. We have to, all that kind of stuff. And so there's this inordinate pressure on us to be perfect at a job description that's unattainable. And we've always had members in all churches that have expected us to be certain things that we cannot be. But what it's become, though, is the official job description is something none of us can be. So I think that has created some dissatisfaction. We just accept it because we're called, we love people, we need a paycheck. And so there's a lot of things that we have to just kind of put up with.
One of the greatest problems in relationships is unmet expectations. And if the church has too great of expectations upon the pastor, you are going to be disappointed.
You're going to,
and it's going to hurt the relationship between pastor and church.
It's so hard. I mean, I know we're kind of pushing the time, but what do you do personally? Will you just kind of settle in who you are and love them through it and change the job description?
One, you're never going to meet everyone's expectations. You have to be okay with disappointment. If you're going to be a pastor, if you are a pastor, you have to be okay with disappointing people. It's going to happen. And then you try to set as many expectations on the front end as you can. I did that when I came to West Bradenton. I was coming out of a low point of ministry. I'd been fired from my previous church for standing up against a sex offender. And, it was just nasty. And I just felt horrible. And I was, 6 months unemployed, all the garbage, all the stuff. But one thing I learned was I just told churches up front. So if you're in transition right now and you're looking, or, you think you may be going to another place of ministry, I was just straight up with everybody. I was co-vocational. I knew I wanted to be co-vocational. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I had a certain personality. I let my guard down. I had to. Yeah. And I just basically said, well, here's who I am. Here's what I plan on doing. And if that's appealing to you, great. If not, I understand. And then I didn't take no hard feelings with any churches that were like, you cannot be our pastor. Fine. Okay. It only takes one. And I tell people that are looking, that's what I tell them all the time. It only takes one. You're going to get 100 no's. Yeah. And then you get the one. And if it's the right fit, then it's great. And you'll be glad that you were upfront about stuff. Yeah. So I would just say, be as upfront as you can, and you're still going to disappoint people, right? Even if you do everything you can to set expectations on the front end. But we got one more here, and I think this one's really important. Why is job satisfaction down? Weakening of networks and denominations. I think this is key.
Everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, you used to be able to, so like we're going into the trenches in the church, and let's just be honest, we're established church leaders. We understand that we are fighting against principalities and darkness and spiritual forces. And a lot of times we're in a culture now that where generally the community doesn't respect the church or pastors and stuff. Like cultural Christianity, as you've said a couple times, is dead. And then there's the fighting that happens in our church. You're trying to lead sheep and a lot of rams and a couple wolves, and so you're trying to go through all this, and it's hard. It's relational. It's hard work. But you used to have this like retreat into your convention or your network or your association, and that's just almost not there anymore. It really isn't. Very few. So in Baptist circles, if you're not a Baptist, usually we have countywide, what we call associations, then we have state conventions, and then we have the national convention, which embarrasses us all and makes the news all the time. And so that thing used to be this place where we could go and lock arms with brothers and sisters that are doing the same thing. And we kind of rib each other and laugh and joke and all that. Man, it's all just turned violent. Methodists just recently split. And so I'm sure that's caused some rifts and some relationships. There's like, are you for us? Are you against us? That kind of stuff. And we're all feeling like, I just used to be us. It just used to be us. And now there's an us and a them. And in our tribe, Southern Baptist, there's just so many us's. There's CBN and 9 Marks and, all the different ones. And they're all just warring against one another to a point where you just feel like, I don't know where I fit. I don't know where my home is. And I feel like I don't really fit in any of it.
Yeah, in my own tribe,
Mm-hmm.
I love my tribe. I love the mission of my tribe, particularly missionaries at ground level doing good work, the church planters doing good work. But the toxicity is to the point to where you just throw up your hands and you just say, I don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't belong. And I've been on the receiving end, some pretty heavy doses of that toxicity myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have too. And, we're just over here going, we just want to reach people for Jesus, and we really don't want to be a part of a fight. Like that's not what we want. Mm-hmm. And you see that in a lot of networks and denominations. You add on top of that some pretty large scale moral failures of people, and the whole system is beginning to crumble. And when the system crumbles, you don't have the support anymore.
Right.
I remember the days of going to associational meetings and actually, I'll probably be the last of my kind, like actually getting good support there. Mm-hmm. And I realize there's some good associations out there. I don't mean to imply that they're all gone. There's some very good ones, and that's really a positive benefit of associations. I remember going to state conventions and, actually being able to, receive some really good advice and stuff like that. And that still exists. Yeah. And I'm glad to be a Florida Baptist. I think very highly of the Florida Baptist Convention. But what I'm saying is, generally speaking, the denominations and networks are only as healthy as the churches are. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of disunity and unhealthiness in local churches, which means the denomination and the network is unhealthy. And the people who are leading these denominations and networks are really caught between a rock and a hard place because they don't have enough healthy churches to pull from to help the ones that aren't healthy. I mean, it used to be back in the day, have 3-4 healthy churches for everyone that was unhealthy. Well, you can do something with that. But now when you have 4 unhealthy churches for every healthy church, well, there's not a whole lot that the denomination can do. There's no funds, there's no places to go, and there's no recommendations to make because, well, everyone's unhealthy. So I feel for people who lead these networks and denominations, but the system is just, it's crumbling beneath us, and it does create a level of stress. And I can see this as probably an unseen thing that's hitting job satisfaction. You feel when people complain about you, online, you feel that immediately. This one, you don't necessarily feel immediately. You don't even really realize, wow, the thing that used to provide support isn't there anymore. And it's just gone.
Yeah. And because some of that is just, you didn't know, you never were in a world where it wasn't tribalism within the tribe. And so that may be something that you don't realize. So my answer to this is to recognize that you don't have to. I think one of the reasons we struggle with this is we're doing the same thing that quote unquote they are doing. And the theys want everybody to be, just completely uniform. You have to think the same way I do on this and that and this and that. And so they fight and they attack those who are not uniform. And we start looking for that tribe or that group of people that is uniform with me. Okay, so I need to find one that exactly aligns with me on my view of women in ministry and soteriology and ecclesiology and how often we should do the Lord's Supper. And I got to find all of that. And we're looking for that. And we feel like, well, I don't fit. So I would encourage you to remember, you can find a people, an encouragement, a group of people that you love one another in spite of not being uniform. You're united, but not uniform. And so Sam and I don't agree on all of the pragmatics. It's literally what makes this show good. I mean, I think it's good, but it's what makes this have something to talk about. I have a group of text friends. We don't agree on nearly anything, but we all love each other and we want each other's churches to succeed. You don't get caught up in the fighting. Find an actual group of people, and they are out there, and you don't have to be uniform. So
some of my best friends in ministry are parts of tribes that theologically, if I were, honest, I couldn't be a part of their tribe. Like there's some pretty major lines there. Mm-hmm. But they're some of my best friends, even though we may disagree on the mode of baptism, for instance, even though I couldn't join their church because of that. But I love them, and they're great. And I want their church to be healthy, and we encourage each other along the way. So, you got to go find it now. It's not just there when you need it. Yeah, I think that's part of the problem, is that monthly meeting that you could just go to anytime. Well, it doesn't exist anymore.
And because of the hyper criticism and connectivity, you start to see more of the differences. They're more elevated. They're more evident. You used to just not know. He was just. Other dude was just a pastor in your association, and that was it. But now you follow him on social media, and you're like, dang, that dude has like way different views than me on this stuff. And it creates divides that don't need to be there. Just be okay with it. Be like, yeah, still just another pastor in the association. So,
all right. Well, it's time to wind this one down. And before we do, I want to give you something free. So here's the deal. We're going to be doing this at least for the next few episodes. But you need to go ahead, because supplies are limited, all right? You need to go ahead and get this offer. We're going to offer you a free book. My dad's new book, Tom Rainer, I Am a Christian. But the way you get this book for free is to go to churchanswers.com/join and sign up for our gold membership. We'd love to have you in Church Answers. And if you sign up for a gold membership at churchanswers.com/join, we'll send you a free book. But you got to send me an email. So the way I'll know is say, hey, I just signed up, excited about gold. And I will reply to that email. We'll get your address and we'll send you the book. So a couple of steps there, I know, but we want to get you this new book. And we also want you to be a part of Church Answers. So let's combine these two efforts. Go to churchanswers.com/join, sign up for gold, send me an email, sam@churchanswers.com. Let me know you signed up, give me your address, and we'll send you the book. We'll just mail it to your house or wherever you want us to mail it to. We'd love for you to have it. So new book, I Am a Christian, is out. Obviously, you can go purchase it on your own if you like, but if you can do that, you might as well just go ahead and sign up for the gold membership at churchanswers.com/join.
That's right. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you go back and listen to previous episodes. And if you have an idea on topics we could talk about, if you're dealing with something, you want us to kind of unpack it and give our opinion on it, we would love to do that in an encouraging way. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe, and let your Twitter followers know your favorite podcast is EST. We'll catch you next week.